Hey, Ricky.
Hello, Neil.
Hi. Okay. Excellent. I was wanting to be sure you were able to get in okay. Wonderful. We've still got a couple more people joining, so we're going to give it another 30 seconds until everyone in the waiting room has been admitted, and then we will get started. Really looking forward to this conversation. Truth be told, up until probably 10 days ago, I was very much like Kurt Russell from Escape from Los Angeles, looking for the device that's going to turn off all electrical devices around the planet and take us back to a simpler time. For those of you old enough to remember that, it was an interesting film, which seems quite relevant today. The reality is AI is here. It's something that is very much a part of our daily lives. We've either got an opportunity to resist it and fight it, or to consider how we can leverage it. And it does present opportunities, and particularly over the last week to 10 days, some of my colleagues have showed me how we could use this to actually enhance and improve the functioning of our organization, particularly from a cultural perspective. So as I said, like, this is a very relevant conversation, particularly given Elon Musk's comments a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago around, do we need to stop working on AI for 6 months until we've got better safety mechanisms in place? From our perspective, we are looking at culture. And I've got a couple of questions that I think I would like to start with. How many of you are aware the impact that AI has had to your workplace? So how many feel that it has a positive impact to your workplace? And you can put your hands up virtually, you can jump into the chat function. We do want to hear from you. This is an interactive session, so please let us know what you would what your thoughts are around this. Fiona, the name of the film is Escape from LA. It's a very cheesy kind of almost B film, and I've already spoilt it because the last scene is where he finds a device that literally, a global EMP that turns off all electromagnetic devices and takes us back to a simpler time. How many of you, we've lost Ricky. How many are you concerned about AI? How many of you are in Elon Musk's camp where maybe we need to stop thinking about and working on AI until we've been able to figure out the true long-term implications? And how many just not thought that much about it at all? I mean, are not sure the impact it's going to have, or not even that bothered about it, because you've got better things, more important things to worry about. So who are we as an organization? For those who don't know us, International Wellbeing Insights is an organization that I set up in 2003, essentially to create a happier, healthier, more resilient world. A world, hopefully, that doesn't need us anymore. Now, even though we've been around for 20 years, it feels like we are further away from that goal today than we were when we came into existence. And we are the research consultancy arm of a non-profit organization called the Stress Management Society. And we have a good experience, the ever-changing nature of the human experience, particularly from a people, culture, and well-being perspective. Obviously, there are a lot of significant changes that have happened to the way we live, work, communicate over the last 3 or 4 years, and particularly over the last couple of months where AI has been the topic du jour. It feels like this is something that everybody seems to be talking about. So we wanted to, from a cultural perspective, have an opportunity to discuss AI, which is why I'm also really pleased and excited that I've got one of my very, very good friends, Ricky Solanki from Push Group, who is also an industry expert on the subject, that is going to help us to understand, sort of from a technological perspective, as well as from a cultural perspective, the things that we should be considering. We seem to have lost Ricky. I'm not sure if he's back or if he's dropped off. Let me see if we can get him back on the screen. Here we go. Excellent. All right, see you, Rick. I'm just making you a presenter.
Thanks, Neil. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, we lost you for a minute. It's interesting. We're here talking about AI, and the technology has been causing me nothing but stress this morning. So clearly we have annoyed the AI gods somewhere along the line.
I know. I'm here now. Hopefully we'll be fine.
Excellent. So also just, wanted to make you aware that, from our perspective, we've had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest companies on the planet. We look at the impact that various different trends, whether that be the pandemic or the hybrid working or AI or whatever else, the impact this has on the workforce and the culture. And that's really what we want to talk about today. Who am I? As I said, I'm the Chief De-stressing Officer at the Stress Man Society and International Wellbeing Insights. And Ricky is very well known for what he does, being a leader for a global agency, an international speaker, as well as a coach. So I just want to kick off with a big open question. What are your thoughts about AI and your experiences of AI in the workplace? And how has that changed, particularly over the last few months? I see Sophia's put in a message there, technology moving so quickly, I'm not sure whether I can keep up with the innovations. I feel you on that one. It feels like just as soon as you get up to speed on a particular aspect of technology, it changes and it's out of date. What else? What other experiences have you had? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings around this? Is this something you're excited about? Is this something you're scared about? Is this something that you feel with hope or nerves? It'd be really good to get some thoughts around this, because from our perspective, we've had a lot of mixed sort of messages around this, particularly with some large organizations announcing they're going to be making redundancies and outsourcing and replacing. There was a big announcement from BT that were talking about making a significant chunk of their workforce redundant. We've got a couple of clients that are very much carefully exploring the impact this is going to have. And it's good to see there's a lot of people that are excited, and that's great, particularly from the creative industries and marketing. I see Monique's Monique's put a message around being excited as a marketeer. So, what are the potential positives? Automating repetitive tasks, improving efficiency, enhancing productivity. And this is just based on my experience over the last 2 weeks, where in preparation for this session, I started using ChatGPT. And I was amazed that things that could have taken me an hour were taking me 5 minutes. I was like, this is great. It is actually helping me. But what have I also seen, particularly with some of our clients, people worried about job displacement, job degradation, the value of what you do being diminished, and also potentially an increased reliance on technology where actually maybe complacency or laziness steps in because we're so heavily reliant on our technology. But I'm not the expert here. I know Ricky's just come back from the States. He's been at a conference. I'm sure you've got much to share on this. So, Rick, do you want to take over? I know you've got some slides to share as well.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Neil. And like a lot of you that are on this call, and similar to Neil, I'm both excited but apprehensive as well about what the future might hold. But and I think someone had a comment in there about, as a marketer, being really excited about making those tedious works much more efficient. And if we look at this graph here, so the pace of change is accelerating. This takes us back to when we had water power, then into the Industrial Revolution, and these are all, you can see the different waves in there of change that we've seen that's impacted us, impacted humanity and impacted economics. I want to take you to the 6th wave, which is the mid-2000s, where you've got internet connectivity and Google search. And Google search changed the way we looked for information, the way we started to buy things. It created a whole new industry. And at that time, there was people talking about what impact would this have on society, and it had a massive impact. And if we move to the 7th wave, we then moved into smartphones, socials, Facebook, TikToks, all these different medias. We've all been engaging with AI, subjected to it, but not actually influencing it. We're now at a point where all of us, everybody on this call, every business from a personal and business perspective, can use AI themselves. Whereas before, we were just the ones looking at a post, sharing content, and then the AI was determining what we would see. But now we're in a very different zone, and you've seen this everywhere. People are talking about AI, people are talking about how they're using it personally, how they're using it in their business. So Neil, if you move to the next slide, please. I don't know if I can change them or
not. Yeah.
So rising to the challenge of accelerating change. This is something called Martek's law. So technology changes exponentially, yet organizations are changing slower, logarithmically. Now, you've just seen that we're going through this wave of AI. There are tools coming on every day. I cannot keep up with how many new tools are being replaced. Coming up every day that we can test, whether they're creative, whether they're to do with Excel sheets, whether they're due to content writing. This graph that you can see here is going to hockey stick upwards, and it's going to leave many organizations moving up at a much slower pace, and this gap is going to become bigger. And this is why us as a business, we exist to try and help businesses fill this gap of change that's happening. So does anybody feel like, just maybe drop a few comments in there, do you feel the same, that in your organization you're seeing all this change but you're finding it difficult to keep up? Great to hear some of your thoughts. Neil, if you can move on to the next one, please.
Yep.
So AI has been disrupting the online advertising world for several years. So whilst everybody now, since ChatGPT has had access to AI, we've been using this, or been using it for running our advertising campaigns for several years. I'll give you an example of that. In 2004, when we started running Google Ads campaigns, from that point on, we were optimizing the ad campaigns, writing ad copy, making bidding changes, doing lots of technical optimizations. Over the last 2 or 3 years, all of those have been stripped away from us. We've not been able to do 80% of what we were able to do, and left with very minimal inputs, because all of the advertising platforms that we work with are using their black box, AI-driven machine learning campaigns to deliver ads into the marketplace to the people they think are going to engage with an ad or buy from an ad straight away. So what does that mean for us? It means that a team that we had and the expertise that we had were no longer relevant as it was changing so fast. Can you go to the next slide, please, Neil?
Rick, just before we move on to the next slide, I think there's an opportunity to stop here for a second, because you're talking about how it disrupted your world. We're starting to see this in our world as well. We spend a lot of time working with HR professionals. There's growing talk that HR could be something that could be completely replaced by AI. We're already seeing this even in the therapeutic world, where there are certain companies that have got AI-driven therapeutic tools where you are speaking to a therapist on a screen, just like we are here, but that therapist is an AI machine, and actually that machine doesn't have any kind of judgments, is able to read much more than a human being will, and has no personal thoughts and feelings about what the individual is sharing. So this is something that, part of it sounds science fiction, but it's already happening. It's already here. So it seems like every facet of society has been impacted. And as you're saying, obviously it's impacting your world, but it's also starting to impact our world, where, the people we're dealing with could potentially be replaced over time with machines.
Yeah, exactly that. And like I said, we've seen this as the wave from the last 2 or 3 years, and now it's hitting everybody, right? It's hitting everybody's industry. But what you said is really important. It could replace HR, but what does AI have that not have that we have? Doesn't have that emotional intelligence, right? It's not able to look at somebody and understand and have that human connection. And this is the thing that we have to hold on to. We have to hold on to it with everything that we're doing, how we're going to utilize it in our workplace, with customers, with suppliers. We have to hold on to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the thing, is at this stage, obviously, they don't have that emotional intelligence. And this is something that I think is interesting, is the changing nature and responsibility we have as humans when working in a workplace where AI is going to have an increasing influence in terms of tasks and functions and responsibilities even.
Absolutely. And so what we did, when we saw this shift happening in our business, we went on a program of human skills training for our team, because we knew that 80% of the work they would do would become redundant. So we went and built a campaign, built a program to make them more client-centric, make sure they can collaborate better, have better commercial insight, be more analytical, have more creative thinking, because a lot of those repetitive, tedious tasks were taken away from them. We would argue that some of those we would still like to do, because we felt like we're having influence. We felt like, well, we can do it better than the machines. Why should we give control? That's not a choice that we were able to make, because it was taken away from us. But what we had to do, we'll think about what are the things that we're going to need to do in this future world. And I'm glad to say that doing this program actually has been really beneficial, both for the individuals and us for a company, because the individuals have learned new skills. They've learned something beyond what they were just doing. They've been able to explore and have more commercial skills, have better conversations. So whatever they do, whether they stay with us in our business or they move on to another business, we believe we've set them up for more success than if they just stayed in their roles, just being very technical in what they were doing.
And can you give some practical examples of what did that skills training look like? So, you know, what process did you take your people through, and what kind of a needs analysis did you do to identify what you were going to implement?
Yeah, so we employed a learning development manager, number one. So we knew that to do this, we're going to have to bring some training in-house. We also made sure that we were able to understand the things they weren't so comfortable with, and then built out a campaign which would have a lot of things like role plays, for example. So actually look at, okay, what are the type of selling skills you need, the human connections you would need, which is you're not engaging with currently in your role, and building that out and having that into a program. We called it the Monster Academy. So we actually built it into something which was not just, oh, we're going to give you training once. It's a whole program that was designed over several months with a certification at the end as well.
Fantastic.
So this is an opportunity for everybody to take the lead in your business, whether or not you are running the business, a manager there, or you work there. Go in and speaking to the business, say, well, what could we be doing in our business to make us more efficient? And then think about what, if we are more efficient, what are the things that we could be working on as a team collectively and as a business? And there was a poll that employees who believe the organization is adopting AI and automation are 3.5 times more likely to be engaged at work. It is fun, it is exciting, but we need to build a framework around it so people can engage with it rather than hiding behind it and worrying about what it's going to do. My belief and how we're trying to work with it is that it's a positive thing, and we need to be open and transparent with how we're working with it.
I think this is interesting because it's like, you know, smartphones, for example. Smartphones were an incredible invention that revolutionized our lives because you had everything you need at the touch of a button. But for many people, it became the bane of our existence over time. It's the first thing most people do when they wake up in the morning. It's the last thing they do before they go to sleep. We're quite literally addicted to our smartphones. And it's not the technology that's bad. It's the fact that we've become addicted to it. So rather than being masters of our technology, the technology works for us, we've become slaves to it. And obviously we saw that happen with the smartphone. We are literally enslaved by our devices. For me, I think this opportunity is posing the same question. Will we become masters of AI, or will we become slaves to it? I know that kind of brings up kind of Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. But I'm quite literally talking about the precedents we've got with smartphones. And I think that's an interesting point. Is, we're talking about here taking the lead in the business, not replacing kind of the human element. But for me, it's also about control. And what are your thoughts on how do we ensure that we are mastering AI and it's serving us to enhance our experience in the workplace rather than becoming enslaved by it?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and especially when I mentioned how many tools are coming on the marketplace. You could spend all day, wake up, and just test AI tools for the entire day. What might you have achieved by the end of it? Probably not much. So you really need to think about setting time limits and actually having workshops or having mini projects with teams. So people are focused on working on one thing, but not 1,000 things, right? Because there are just too many things. And this is about, the first step is getting comfortable, just getting comfortable with how it works and how you can use it and how you can use it effectively, before then thinking about, okay, I'm going to go and test all these million tools. If you're on Instagram or any of these social media platforms, you're probably seeing loads of things of, oh, I can make a video of yourself, make an AI avatar of yourself, put content out every day, and you can spend all day just doing all these things, but is it really impacting what you need to do today in your business? And I think that's the key thing, is like really look at maybe the processes that you've got in your business and think, okay, I've got these processes, what takes me a long time? Okay, and if I focus on this one process, can I use AI to help me in there? Work collaboratively on your team and just keep it really focused into single elements instead of thinking about how AI can replace your entire business or your entire workflow. So what we did in our business, we conducted an AI survey, and I recommend people do this here. There was an image there, so I'm not sure what's happened to it. But we asked people to put us on a scale of 1 to 10 how familiar people are with AI. So it might be interesting if a few people can put that into the chat here whilst I'm talking. From a scale of 1 to 10, how familiar are you with AI? So we could also ask them to share any thoughts they have about the emergence of use of AI in their life, in the workplace and society. And are they currently using AI tools? And if so, provide details about the tools and their use. We also segmented by department, segmented by role, and kept it anonymous as well. So and did a lot of work to build a high engagement rate. We wanted to see where we were today in our business, and we already know we use we think we're using a lot of AI. Or AI is already impacting our business, but we wanted to get this start point of where are we. And I know you do this in your business when you're going in to see businesses. You need that basis of understanding where they are to start with.
And again, this is an interesting point for us to reflect on, because most of us aren't fully familiar with the impact it's already having on our daily lives. So when we were preparing for this session and we did a little bit of research, is the amount of things where AI will influence, whether that's, okay, you know, when you phone like a call center and the call handling and the routing of that call is done by AI. When you're making purchases on Amazon, when you're on social media, AI is heavily influencing your user experience. But there are other facets, and I think this is potentially something for us to explore, is what other aspects of our daily lives is being influenced by AI, even in a workplace, that we may not even be aware of, and particularly with some of the current sort of developments. What are the influences it's having on our daily lives, right?
Yeah, so if you're using Gmail, Gmail AI finishes off your sentences for you, right? As a starting point, that's happening immediately, right? If you're, for example, what we're using in our workplace, if we're writing ad copy for clients, we're using AI immediately. So there's so many areas where AI is influencing both the content that we're seeing and the content we're putting out as well.
And absolutely. And I think the second question is share your thoughts about the emergence of AI in your life, workplace, and society. And that's an interesting one, because, as I said, like, we've only really had a mainstream dialogue about it over the last 6 or 7 months. You know, other than that, unless you went looking for the information, it wasn't like in every newspaper, on every social media channel, every high-level person talking about it. But it just feels like, particularly over the last few months, it's become the topic du jour. But this has been growing for a time. This has been going on for a while. I remember listening to podcasts a couple of years ago about the growing impact on our daily lives. And from a cultural perspective, we are at a significant point of change. Particularly what happened during the pandemic, where a lot of people overnight started working from home. We became heavily reliant on some of our technological platforms to stay in touch, to be able to work and communicate. From our perspective, we never used Microsoft Teams until March 2020. The pandemic forced our hand, and now pretty much every aspect of the functioning of our organization is relying on Teams and similar platforms. So this has happened relatively quickly. So, for many organizations, including ourselves, we're still in that kind of getting to grips with a rapid and radical change. And I remember us speaking offline about this a few days ago. You said whatever you've learned now, whatever you've got to grips with now, is going to be outdated in a year's time, because things are changing so rapidly. So I think there's just some thoughts on this as well. It'd be interesting to hear from our participants today about your thoughts on not just the impact it's having today, but the rapidity of change. And what are your thoughts on that, Ray?
Yeah, the speed of change is the thing which I think about the most. And I showed you that graph before, that we're going to have this hockey stick. So when I go back to tools, I've tested a tool, looks great. Immediately I see another tool that's launched that's doing 10 times more than the other tool. You go and test that tool, and then there'll be another tool. So you almost get into this paralysis state of, do I do anything because everything's moving so fast, right? Or if I do something, or I build something, we've built our own technology platform, you're building something knowing that it's maybe going to be redundant, right? It's going to be redundant in 6 months, 12 months, because somebody would have used AI to make the thing that you spent 2-3 years making. So there's real challenges in trying to think about what do I focus, like go back to what do I focus on today, knowing that tomorrow it still might not be relevant. I might not be able to use that tool. Let's look at ChatGPT as an example. So we can see here some of the participants, marked, being familiar with AI. You've got lots of fours, and I would assume there that a lot of people are using ChatGPT. Again, it would be a good thing to see if people you can just put in there, what tools they're using when they're using AI. And so ChatGPT at the moment, people are playing around with it, asking questions. The best way to get the best results is the input you put into it. So the longer you can write a prompt, what they call, so you can give it context about what you're trying to do, context on who you are and what information you're trying to find. That's how you get the real information that you can use. And then you can take that, you can adapt it, you can ask questions on it, and you can refine it. But the way we use ChatGPT in a year is going to be very different, because the AI itself is learning, and also everything you're doing and writing these long prompts that we call them, they're all going to be in software tools. So all of us, what we're doing in ChatGPT is going to be almost redundant, because you're going to maybe be using something else. Google are bringing out their own version, Bard, which is not in the EU yet. But what's going to happen when that's integrated and launched? When you search on Google search, you're not going to get the search results you see today. You're going to get AI-driven results as well as the search results. So this is going to significantly change even how we interact with the internet.
No, that's interesting. Kenneth's kind of made an interesting point. It's moving so fast. I think the analogy that comes to mind is, let's say you go into a car showroom and you're looking at the latest model on the forecourt. As you're walking around it, even before you get into test drive it, by the time you finish walking around it, a new model has come out. So you haven't even finished looking at the old model. Then you get in that model and take it for a test drive. By the time you come back, 2 new models have been introduced. So even at the point of purchase, it's the version you've been looking at has been outdated several times before you've even made a buying decision. And I can say from our perspective, when we looked at certain technological platforms, even before we made a decision whether this is the platform we were going to go with, they were already out of date. That's how quickly things are moving, and the rapidity of change. I've never seen anything like this. So it's interesting, and I think change isn't something that's easy or comfortable. We'll talk about change later, and this is the process of a period of significant human change. Excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you go to the next slide. So based off of the survey, what we found here in our key findings, which I think will be similar in other organizations, or if anyone else has run this as well, we saw that employees are both excited and apprehensive, and I think we've seen that from the participants in their comments today, and also that overwhelmed with the amount of information. And we saw that 27% of people mark themselves as under 5, and I think if we looked at the results that we had here, there's a high proportion of people under 5 as well, so in terms of their exposure to AI. So what we found is needed, and what maybe something people can implement within their businesses, is to look at picking a chat bot. So is it ChatGPT you're going to use? Are you going to use ChatGPT Plus? Are you going to use Bard? Because there's different versions, they all behave slightly differently. And at the moment, there's no winner, there's no what right or wrong, and you have to just test different ones. If you want more up-to-date information, you'd be using something like ChatGPT Plus. What you can do is separate teams out into different teams, and people can explore different programs. And this is very much an era here where we're all experimenting. There is no prescribed path ahead. So we all need to be conscious of that and think, okay, if I test this tool, let's just try and see how I can work with it. You need to have a structure to test and implement in a fun way. So I say, right, we've got this one process, we've got this one project. Let's see what we can use with AI. Let's test it out. Let's come back. Let's report to it. So this is a way of just building it into the culture of the business, so we're able to work on it much better. And we know that more guidance is needed, and policy and education around what we're running. So if you go to the next slide, off the back of that, we've built an AI manifesto. If you're going to be using AI in the business, we need to be clear of why we're using AI in a business. So we're trying to use it in our business so that we We can unlock opportunities for personal and organizational development. We can integrate it into the business. We can drive growth. If we drive growth, what does that mean? We can employ more people. We can have better opportunities for everybody. So this is not about a cost-cutting exercise. Oh, how can we be more efficient and get rid of people? It's about how can we drive it to be a better company? How we can drive for growth. I would say that if you looked at that, you mentioned about BT cutting jobs to AI. I'm surprised that they can make that decision now when we're in the infancy of AI. And was that just a convenient way for them to say this is the way we're going to get rid of people? I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, Neil.
Yeah, the cynical part of me is seeing that it's easy to blame the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, AI for making a business decision. You know, like I don't mean to sound cynical, but we've seen people use these as reasons to blame cost-cutting exercises or retrenching staff. So it's not often what we believe it is, and I think that's one of the things that concern me is, are we really at a point where we know the technology, or the technology is well developed enough for people to be making such significant decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. So so that the first one, what came up in our manifesto was driving growth. The second was responsible implementation. So we want to prioritize open communication, transparency. We don't want people doing their work and not telling us that it was made from AI or they use AI for it. Instead, having an open, transparent way of saying, well, I used AI for this part. It gave me these results. I'm not quite sure of it. It worked really well. But we want it to be open. We want people to talk about it, to see where it's good and where it's bad, because there's been many instances where it's given us false information. One time I put in a spreadsheet and it started giving me these results, and I thought, okay, that seems close. And I said, can you just give me a bit more detail? And it just started making up company names and telling me that this company did this and this company did that, and it wasn't accurate. So we can't 100% just take it and trust it. Where you might have seen examples of people where they students who've used it for their dissertations or essays, and they've left at the top this was generated by ChatGPT, or they've left a marker in there because they've not even bothered to check it. They've just taken it as gospel that it's correct.
So again, I'm kind of chuckling because I'm just thinking of another significant technological innovation that changed the culture of society, and that was internet dating apps, right? When they first came out, and bear with me before you judge me on this, when they first came out, people would use them secretly. You wouldn't announce it, and if you'd be quite shy, and it was kind of seen as a place for weirdos to turn up because they couldn't find a date in real life. Over time, and I remember, when it first came out, I was in a relationship for quite a long time, and when I came out the other side of that relationship, it was just normalized. Everyone was using internet dating apps, and I think, particularly at the moment, it feels like we're at that stage with AI where even if people are using it, as you said, they're not comfortable admitting it. We've had that in here, whether that's writing copy or working on sort of reports, where they may have used AI for a bit of help, but not being willing to admit it because it's kind of like there's a bit of stigma associated with it. I totally appreciate over time it will become normalized. And what you're suggesting here is, having some kind of manifesto or policy procedures around it, making it okay. I think it's great. I have some questions around this, just to understand how you approach this. Who led this? Was this HR led? Was this led by individual managers? Is this something that yourselves as senior leadership sat down and discussed? So how did you actually decide to approach the strategic proposition of AI and the impact it will have on the way you run your organization?
Yeah, so from a strategic standpoint, that would be the C-suite. So the leaders in the business, knowing the impact it's already had in our industry and the impact it's going to have in the future, and how we need to be the ones that understand it the best we can, even though it's changing and we're at that frontier for both our employees and customers as well. But the piece around the survey and the manifesto, that's been then led by our people team. So the head of people team are analyzing what we're thinking in the C-suite and saying, okay, this is the direction you want to go. We can't just go in and do that. We have to build this framework so we can support the employees through this process.
Fantastic.
So yeah, so just one. We just go back one slide again, Neil, please. Sorry. So yeah, the third one was a human-centered approach. So we want to put the human experience at the heart of AI integration. So we want a culture where people are using the AI, but not just using AI. We want people to continue to meet people in person, try and spend more time meeting customers, suppliers, internal meetings. So the AI can reduce time on these repetitive tasks. Like you said, things would take 2 hours, you can get done in 5 minutes. What are we going to do with that time that we've got back? So the time we've got back, we want people to be spending that having more human connections, not spending more time on AI. One side point as well, this image that you can see on the right here is a AI generated image where I've just typed into the Bing, all the images that you'll see are all AI driven. So I just put AI manifesto, and that was the image that came up. So rather than leaving a blank slide, I just thought to show a little example of a tool you could use for AI, which can help people speed up their time in presentations as well.
Excellent.
Next page, please. Yeah. And then on top of the manifesto, then we've had our legal team draft up an AI usage policy. So here what we want to do is think about respecting customer confidentiality, anonymizing data. So if you're going to upload data about business or a project, put a fake company name in, put a fake location in. Think about the data that you're putting into these ChatGPT. Can I put that information? Is that confidential information of that customer? Because if you're putting information into these chatbots, they could be then used to train the model, and somebody could ask a question and say, oh, what information do you have on this business? And if it's been inputted in there, it could surface when somebody's searching. So you need to be really mindful about your own information and any customers or supplier information that you put into any of these tools. If you're using a tool outside of ChatGPT or using another tool, which allows you to, so we use some tools as an example where it has an API into ChatGPT, but then we can also upload spreadsheets and other information. So we're giving it supporting context and saying, look, I've given you, let's say we're doing a brand workshop, for example. I could give a tool our tone of voice, our mission, our vision, our brand values. I could give them reviews from our customers. And I could say, you have all this information on here. Can you now answer these questions about our brand? And when you do that, you get very powerful results. But you need to review the tools you're using. Like if I'm going to upload those documentation, is that going to be led to feed the AI even more? So being really conscious about it, because it's a bit of the wild, wild west at the moment here, right? We're just all using these tools. We're not really thinking about the impact of the data. And this is very much like what the internet was like when it first started.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's gathering that data and accumulating its vast warehouse of knowledge. And I think this is where I remember we were working with a company that work in an industry where the staff, are working on very secure defense projects. They weren't even allowed to have Alexa and Siri type devices whilst they were working because of fear that that information was being gathered and collected. And again, this is where, for me, it's really important if you're working with sensitive information, just be aware of where that data is being collected and who's listening, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And what you can do is you can just summarize that data, right? You can make up a fake company. You can make up fake and generalize and say this business is trying to achieve these things, and then get information out. And even for your own business, because you might want to put all your own information out there because somebody's going to be able to get that. And I recommend you to try it. What you could do is pick a largest competitor in your market and go to ChatGPT and find out all the information it's got about it. Then you get an idea about what information it is holding.
Mm-hmm.
So and so just to finish, these are two quotes which I think are really relevant. Now, there's obviously lots of negative quotes which go into that area of doom and Terminator, but the two positive ones that I like is one from Tim Cook. So the question isn't whether AI is good or bad. The question is, how do we ensure that the use of AI is aligned with the values we care about? We are inputting into these systems. We've got to make sure what we input is aligned with the values of our own business. From a personal aspect, but from a business perspective, our values are about being open and being ahead and having a family and community within our business. So when we're using these platforms, we want to think about how we're using them. So what we don't want to do is start going in there and saying, right, I want to copy information from this website because it looks really good. Can you rewrite it for me? Oh, and I like the design of this website. Can you design it for me so nobody knows? And now can you go and build me a website? Because you can do that. You can literally go and rip off somebody's business, somebody's landing page, somebody's ads, and just get it reworded and launch it. That's not a very responsible way to do it. And that's, if you're doing it with those values, we're training the AI to behave in a very poor way.
And the values thing, I think, is something that's really important for us to touch on, because there's the podcast. I know we both listened to it because we've discussed it in the past. It was Mo Gaudat, who was the head of Google X, and he was kind of one of the driving forces behind sort of the AI revolution. And he had a very tragic experience where his son died at the age of 21 unexpectedly from a medical failure, shall we say. He kind of sunk into a bit of a philosophical journey and kind of started working on the meaning of happiness. And he came up with an equation of happiness where your life experience is equal to or greater than your expectations. But what's relevant for our conversations today is when he was looking at the issue of AI and the advancements in AI, and he estimated, I think it was, if I remember correctly, by the year 2045, don't quote me on that, it was about 2045, AI will be 1 billion times more intelligent than a human being based on the current rates of growth. To give context to that, we're about 1 billion times more intelligent than a fly. So basically, 20 years plus from now, AI will look at us like we would look at our fly. But how are they learning? How are they growing? They're using all the information that is available to them, which are technological mediums, mainstream media, social media, the internet, YouTube, etc. If we are using these platforms to learn about humanity, the overall weight of information is suggesting doom, death, devastation, destruction. And I'm sure everybody on this session today knows that is not true. There's lots of examples of human beings doing incredible, wonderful things every single day. But we don't hear about the good stories as much as we hear about the bad stories. So essentially, AI is learning about a stage of infancy right now. They're learning about the world that they found themselves in. And the information we're presenting is not necessarily giving a balanced perspective. And I think exactly to your point, Rick, it's like, we need to be better teachers to AI, because at some point they're going to outgrow us in terms of intelligence and capability. At some point they'll get to the point where we may not be able to switch them off. And I think this was Elon Musk's point when he was 6 months ago or a few months ago suggesting that we might need to stop working on it for a period of time, is ensuring that we are being responsible in terms of how we are training AI. And to Tim Cook's point, it's not good or bad. It's very much kind of how we train it. And, I would like to believe no child comes into this world bad, no dog comes into this world bad. Like, it's through nurture, it's through life experience that will determine whether they are good or bad in their application of their life. And I think this is really where we need to consider change is constant. Change is happening, and it's happened throughout not just human history, throughout history as we know it in the universe. There is a fundamental law in physics, which is the universal law of impermanence. Nothing is permanent. Everything changes constantly. Change is necessary. It's inevitable. Suffering is optional, but growth is possible. And I think this, for me, is a huge opportunity for us to grow, for us to do better. So just a little poll, a straw poll for there's a model that I think really highlights how we can navigate change effectively. It's known as the Tuckman's model of change. So how many have heard of it? So you just drop in yes, no, or don't know. So just let me know what your thoughts are. There is a poll that's going to pop up on your screen right now, and you just need to click on one of the options. Let's see how many of you have come across this, because I want to share something with you that potentially is going to support you and your organizations in being able to navigate this period and process of change. Ricky's already shared some examples of what he's done within his organization and what he's observed that are effective at being able to navigate this. So just giving a few more moments for responses to come in. Okay, so Vast majority have not come across Tuckman's model before, so it's 72%. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to share it with you. And Ricky, I'm going to be really interested in your input on this. So the first stage of Tuckman's model is forming. It's where we're introduced to change, it's where something is presented. And right now, when it comes to AI, we're at the forming stage. We're just trying to figure this out. What does this mean? How is this going to impact us? We're gathering information. We're trying to get our heads around this. We're looking at the implications of this period or process of change. From there, we get to storming. And I think this is where we're rapidly heading to, where there will be some resistance. The old guard will want to hold on to the way things are. And this has happened through any period of change. People will fight and resist against it, whether it was, as your hockey stick model shared, Ricky, whether it was the printing press, the Industrial Revolution. There were people that fought and resisted and tried to hold on to the way things are. Now, no matter how much you fight, as I've said, it's inevitable. Change is going to happen. This can lead to conflict, factions. Some people on the let's go with AI, some people on the let's switch it off. Going back to the Kurt Russell movie, The Escape from LA, there are people that will try and find a way of switching this off. Pushing against boundaries set during the forming stage. This requires open communication, empathy, spirit of forgiveness, understanding that sometimes there are people that will take longer to get on board with the change. And I'm also asking you to consider this within your organization, everything that Ricky shared, that, when you start this process, not everybody's going to be excited about this. Not everyone's going to be on board with it. And even when you introduce policies and guidance and strategies and training and development, there still will be some resistance. It's inevitable. My colleague Duncan and myself, we call it the permafrost. There will be a layer of people within your organization that will be frozen in time in the way things used to be. And they are going to be extremely uncomfortable or not willing to get on board with the way things are now. Then the next stage, going too fast, is norming, where it becomes the new normal. People forget the way things used to be. And we just accept that AI is a part of our life. We embrace it, we start trusting it, we have understanding and collaboration. And then the final stage is where we hit peak performance, where we work effectively with the new system, we've developed the necessary skills, adopted the culture that embraces this new way of being. But here's the thing, even when you hit stage 4 of performing, what will happen is over time, whatever you went through to get to the stage of performing will become outdated and something new will come in, and then you're back to stage 1 again. This is a constant, never-ending cycle of dealing with change. And the moment you get comfortable and complacent at the performing stage, thinking, that's it, I've made it, is where the challenges start to come in. So Rick, I know we touched on this previously during the week, and you hadn't really come across this model. In terms of where we are with AI, what are your thoughts around this model and the potential impact on something that is changing faster than we keep pace of it?
Well, yeah, the model's interesting. When you mentioned to me, I did look it up, and like you say, we're still, even us, I would say, who've been working with it for a while, we're still at this forming stage, and we've been through these waves. We've had these kind of cycles of change. The thing that I don't have the answer for right now is that the pace at which we're going to see, you just mentioned about Gaudat when he was talking about, in 20, 30 years, where we're going to be, because it's moving so fast, it's a real challenge to see how we can keep this cycle to keep going. And
this is where I'd like to share some ideas. We did a bit of research around sort of how best can we support people we're working with to be able to navigate this period of change and to use this to not just cope, but thrive. We don't want you to just survive this period of change, but actually use it as an opportunity to thrive. The first thing is adopt a growth mindset. Encourage people to think about how we can embrace this. Looking at how we can be grateful for this. As I said, I've been resistant myself, but over the last week, I thought actually there's certain emails or certain reports that I've been working on. We've been able to get support in actually producing a structure, and my job has been to finesse and edit rather than write from scratch. So something that could have taken me an hour and a half, I've been able to do in a few minutes. We've been looking at how do we enhance some of our clients' experience working with us by giving them access to more information more quickly and being able to find the right things at the right time. So actually, how can I be grateful rather than resist that change? How can I seek out opportunities, not problems, and harness the power of like, okay, well, it might not be working for me yet, but I will get there. Focusing on what we can control, what can produce the best results for me, and Ricky, as you suggested, like testing out different ways of working, different tools, different platforms. What do I need to do to upskill myself? And again, you spoke about sort of the learning and development approach that you took with this, so you're ensuring people have the right skills. But coupled with that, skills brings confidence. And often it's not just the actual skills they need, it's the confidence to be able to navigate this. I think for me, the biggest thing was the lack of confidence using technological platforms. Yeah, I still struggle using a search engine at times. So, now kind of having to figure out how to use AI was a challenge. And, I know we've joked about this before. Like, I struggle with an Excel spreadsheet still. I'm in 2023, I still struggle with that. So actually, it's learning how to navigate a particular technological platform gives me confidence. I can actually do this. And is there a different role that I can utilize that's linked to my current skill set? How can I enhance what I'm able and capable of doing by leveraging these tools? So again, focusing on what I can control and understand the law of response and outcome. Outcome equals event times response. It's not what happens, it's how we respond to it. If you respond to something with fear, cynicism, and discouragement, then obviously that's going to have a significant impact to how you respond to it. Now, we've seen, there was an example, I think there was a train in Belgium somewhere, and there was a guy that pulled out a gun, and there was some off-duty Marines from America that were on holiday. Something happened. Everybody else went into panic and screaming and hiding. And these three guys, they knew exactly what to do. They were trained for it. They had the necessary skills to be able to respond in a way that led to a positive outcome. What I'm suggesting here is how can we equip ourselves with the skills and confidence, so when something happens, we're ready to be able to respond appropriately. Our choices and attitudes and actions shape our results. We might not be able to influence the technology and the rate and pace of change, but you can absolutely influence your attitude and the choices and the actions you take to be able to navigate this period of change. And the stronger our response, the better the outcomes. So be proactive. Don't wait until it's too late before you start taking time to reflect on how this is going to impact your organization and the culture of your organization. And with regards to this, whether it's with regards to the impact of your culture, how you navigate this, how you start to engage with your people to ensure that we have an understanding where they are. And also, if you are looking for any information specifically on the technological aspect, obviously we are not technology experts, but we can definitely connect you with Push, with Ricky and his colleagues that will be able to talk to you about this. So, you can reach out to us at any time. We've got a few minutes left. We do also want to have an opportunity for you as an audience that you've invested your most valuable resource today, which is your time in being here. What would you like to ask us? What questions, what thoughts, what feedbacks, what would you like to share before we finish today's session? So it's a good opportunity for any of you to jump on. If you want to jump on the microphone, you're welcome to do that as well. So you just unmute yourself and stick your camera on if you want to come on camera, but also you can just put it into the chat function. Hazel's asked an interesting question. I think that's one for you, Ricky.
Yeah, so how can you be sure of the authenticity of the source of data that AI uses? So something that ChatGPT has done more recently is they've started to put citations around some of the quotes, because before some of them were fake. But I think this is back to one of the points I made before, is like I wouldn't trust anything 100%. You have to take that information, maybe do a Google search, maybe reference that with other information that you have, because it is taking information from the web. There could be biases in there as well. So something else we didn't really touch on. We need to be careful about that. It's only the AI is working off the information it has, and there could be some inherent biases in there as well. So we need to be careful of that. But I would definitely check any quote, look for citations. If there are no citations there, then go and find one yourself.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments, feedback, anything you want to share? I've also just put in Ricky's website for anyone that would like to reach out to them regarding the technological side of things, and our website if you want to find out more from a cultural and workplace perspective. Now, as I said, this conversation is something that potentially may be redundant in a few months' time because things are changing so rapidly. So it's not like you can look at this once and we did AI in 2023, summer 2023. We're covered with that. We've got the right policies, the right information, the right guidance in place, because it will change. So like with well-being, it's not a one-time gig. It's something that will require constant attention. If you're doing regular employee engagement surveys or pulse surveys, incorporate this in. Ask regularly about the impact this is having and how people feel about certain aspects of kind of the workplace culture, including the technological aspects of it as well. Look at what other people are doing. There's a lot of kind of organizations that are leading the way with this. So, look at some of the best practice strategies that are out there and how that can impact you. We've got a couple more questions that come in, which are, what AI platforms do you suggest that can automate administrative tasks at home that are free? And for AI-powered tools that allow organizations to put data together and create a sort of internal search engine or digital assistant, where does the uploaded data go? So, you got any thoughts on that, Rick?
Yeah, so you can use, one tool you can use is called Cody. I think it's Cody.ai. So that's the one where you can create internal search engine, internal chatbot and assistants. Another one is Agent GPT. So I was thinking about this the other day, actually. The word agent's a bit worrying because then you think of the Matrix and you think of Agent Smith, so a bit worried about creating these agents. But essentially, you can create a HR agent, you can create a marketing agent, create a sales agent, and build different personas to those and give them information. So those are the two that we're testing at the moment, but there are a numerous number of ones out there to test at the moment.
Absolutely. And any closing thoughts, Ricky, in terms of the sentiment you want to leave people with before we finish?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but the other advantage or something I think as a species or humanity and it's in the workplace that we can take from using AI is this gives us the opportunity to learn so much more and to be able to move our skill sets from what we do today into lots of other areas. I'll give you an example. I don't profess to be any kind of video expert or anything like that, but I was able to use ChatGPT to write me an ad for a campaign that we're running and did a user-generated content. It's a skill set that normally I probably would have stayed away from and I didn't want to do it. But you can now work more collaboratively with all your teams. You can find information out and go to your creative team, go to your HR team with much more information. You can learn to communicate with them better. You can learn so many more skills because you can just put information in around a topic you were thinking about. Said, I'm interested in this topic. Can you tell me the 80% of information that I need to know that this author was talking about? You can upskill yourself through knowledge and information much more than ever before. We used to do this from Google, but it still was a bit of a faff. It still took time. We can get more information, change our skill sets of what we do. And I think that's the kind of closing piece here, is that I think all of us of what we do in our jobs is not what we're going to be doing in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
Absolutely. And I think, coupled with that, when we go into fear about something that's different, uncomfortable, a period of change, that creates stress. And, when you're stressed, you're in fight or flight. It's like, how do I escape from danger or hide from danger? Rather than looking at this as something that's dangerous, how do we look at this as an opportunity? Where actually, for me, this is a bigger, huge, potential global opportunity where we can do better as a species, where we can leverage and harness technology to collaborate, to communicate, to work more effectively, to find solutions to the challenges that we're facing on this planet, whether that be sort of climate or conflict or whatever else. And to be able to use this as a period of significant human growth. and maturation. I hope, and this is where, as I said, like it's exciting if we allow it to be, but equally it's scary if that's what we believe, because whatever you believe is essentially going to influence our actions. And I think this is where putting out responsible information, encouraging people to look at how they view these tools, increase your skills and confidence, will allow us to be able to leverage this in a way that, as I said, could transform our society for the better.
100% agree with you.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. This was a very new and innovative topic for us. We normally talk about sort of cultural and well-being related subjects. So for us to kind of have the opportunity to discuss this, which is on the forefront of all of our minds, was a really great opportunity. Thank you so much, Ricky, for joining us today. Anyone that has any questions, any comments, any feedback, or would like to discuss this further, please feel free to reach out to us directly. We will share the recording, the slides, and the handbook for this session with you, and also feel free to share that with any friends or colleagues that weren't able to attend in person. If you'd like to speak to us directly, I've shared the website link, so please feel free to reach out. Wishing you a wonderful day and look forward to having you on next month's session. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.